Agnes, as many of us have feared, the coronavirus stakes are much higher on the continent. We seem to be separating them in different countries, but kind of continent-wide, what are some of the main issues you think are being faced there?
Thank you, Juliana. Back in January, February, when signs of coronavirus or news of coronavirus being a pandemic started streaming, we were all wondering what will happen when it finally comes knocking down on Africa. And yes, back in March, early March, we started recording early signs of infections and also fatalities. So one of the biggest challenges for us is how do we manage the social distancing that is important to avoid the spread of coronavirus? Second of it, how do we ensure that people are fed, that people are secure? So we're having to deal with so much, I would say almost the same as developed economies are dealing with. High rates of unemployment, hunger, starvation, and in some cases, Juliana, I think hunger will kill more people in Africa than, I hope not, than COVID-19 will.
Wow, that's pretty scary, but clearly those are the concerns. We've seen throughout this week the IMF, the EU, the UN, the World Bank, leading charities, they're all now focusing a lot of their attention on Africa. One of those organizations have suggested that $2 trillion is needed to fight this pandemic. For some of us, many of us, who are seeing quite a small death rate compared to the rest of the world, do you think that we're being too presumptuous, that this pandemic will have a squeeze on Africa, or are these finances needed?
I think it's important that we are very careful. Remember, our healthcare infrastructure is already very weak. So suddenly we can see funding streaming through some of the poorest countries in Africa, perhaps to support them, help them mitigate the risk of the pandemic. And yes, IMF released a list of 20 countries yesterday that will receive some debt relief or some help towards debt repayment, so they can focus on really managing the spread of COVID, and also trying to cure. So 20 countries, including Rwanda, Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso, Liberia. So a list of countries, and you're aware that other countries have gone directly to these institutions to borrow money. Ghana got some funding from IMF, so has Senegal, and Rwanda also got money from World Bank. So yes, governments are not sitting back. Governments are doing whatever they can with the little resources to ensure that Africa does not suffer this dreadfulness. Of course, we're already seeing the impact, and we're trying to say, what can we do with the little resources we have to ensure that it doesn't spread further?
Absolutely, of course, as well. We have history. We've seen what a pandemic can do. We're just getting over Ebola, aren't we? It's interesting you spoke about that list of countries there, because a lot of focus, of course, I believe due to size and the economic fallout, has been centred on South Africa and Nigeria. Rwanda, as you mentioned, they did receive a loan from the World Bank, I believe, of just over $14 million. Where is this money going to be allocated to, and how have Rwanda and other countries in the east of Africa been dealing with this issue?
So we've seen some really great examples and leadership coming out of some countries, and you rightly put it, Rwanda is one of them, Ethiopia, Ghana, countries that have very little resources but have shown leadership, perhaps even better than the confusion we saw in the developed economies. I guess the earlier warnings were able to support, to help these countries make better decisions. So the funds that will go mainly to the healthcare infrastructure, I think that will be priority for many countries, ensuring that citizens are tested, they do contact tracing, ensuring that people who have had maybe come into contact with people with the infection are contacted and tested, but at the same time empowering community so that we can be able to fight the pandemic. So there's a lot of activities. Especially for Rwanda, they have clarified exactly where these funds will go to. And for others, the funds will be able to help them really focus on the very weak infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure.